Attacking him was stupid.
4 words. That's all it takes. Not a greeting, not a context setter, not even a moment of acknowledgement that his son just walked into a war tent. Just immediate, cold judgment. And that's when you realize this isn't a scene about a father teaching his son how to be a warrior. This is a scene about a man terrified of dying. This is Tywin Lannister, and what you're watching is simultaneously the most honest and most defensive thing he'll ever say in the entire series. He's standing over a dead stag with a knife in his hand, methodically skinning it layer by layer, and what he's really doing is skinning his own son's illusions about what matters in this world. For the longest time, I thought this scene was about power, about dominance, about a ruthless patriarch molding his son into the perfect weapon. And sure, on the surface, that's exactly what it looks like. But the more I watch it, the more I realize it's actually something much darker. So as always, I'll talk about all of these things in detail, but first, we need some context. By this point in the story, the Stark-Lannister conflict is already boiling over. Catelyn Stark has kidnapped Tyrion, which is essentially a declaration of war. Jaime attacked Ned Stark, and now there's this letter from essentially demanding answers for the crime of their bannerman. And Tywin's response? He's casually skinning a stag while his son reads the letter. That image alone tells you everything you need to know about him. Busy, practical, untouchable. And here's where Charles Dance's performance becomes absolutely essential to understanding what's actually happening in this scene. Because what he does is something remarkable. He strips away every layer of calculated power and shows you pure, distilled anxiety underneath. The precision of his movements while skinning that stag, those aren't the movements of a man performing dominance. They're the movements of a man performing normalcy. It's a ritual. It's a meditation. It's a man actively trying to keep his hands busy, keep his mind focused on something concrete and physical. Watch the blocking of this scene carefully. Tywin keeps his gaze fixed on that stag for most of the interaction. He barely looks at Jaime. It's easy to interpret that as disrespect, as Tywin communicating through pure body language that his son isn't important enough to warrant his full attention, that the dead animal is more interesting than the living son. But it's actually the opposite of that. He can't look at Jaime directly because looking at his son, really looking at him, means confronting a truth he spent his life avoiding. Jaime is exactly like him. Vain. Desperate to be seen as powerful and impressive. Terrified of being judged. The knife he's using to skin that animal, the precision, the control, it's all a performance designed to hide the fact that he's as afraid as his son is. So when Jaime makes an excuse for why he didn't kill Ned, when he says,
"Why is he still alive?"
One of our men interfered. Speared him.
And instead of just calling him out on the lie directly, he asks the same question a second time.
"Why is he still alive?"
It's a subtle tactic, but it's devastating. He repeats it because he needs Jaime to break. He needs to hear the truth, not because it will help Jaime, but because it will confirm his entire worldview about human nature. The moment Jaime finally breaks and admits,
"It wouldn't have been clean."
This is where the scene shifts into something that feels almost predatory. You can see it on Tywin's face. This isn't a father who's disappointed in his son. This is a man who's just had his worldview validated, and now he can use it as a weapon.
A lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of the sheep.
But here's what's so brilliant about this line, and what most people miss. Tywin isn't saying it because he actually believes lions work that way. He's not making an observation about nature. He's making a prescription. He's trying to tell Jaime how to be. But more importantly, he's trying to convince himself that it's possible to live that way. Think about it. This is a man who has literally spent decades constructing the perfect image of the Lannister family. That's the behavior of someone absolutely consumed by reputation, absolutely terrified of judgment, absolutely desperate to control his image. He's describing the man he wishes he could be, the man he's built an entire philosophy around pretending to be. But it's a lie, and on some level, Tywin knows it. And then Tywin tells Jaime about the family name. And this is the heart of the scene. This is Tywin's true confession.
It's the family name that lives on. It's all that lives on.
This isn't just a speech about legacy. This is Tywin Lannister confessing something so deeply personal, it's almost painful to watch. He's admitting that the only part of himself he believes can survive death is the Lannister name. Everything else, his body, his memories, his actual accomplishments, the way people knew him as an individual, the specific texture of his life and personality, all of that disappears into the ground. Only the name endures. And that terrifies him so completely that he's built his entire life as a bulwark against that terror. But that's not actually how legacy works. And deep down, I think Tywin knows that. It's the reason he's so obsessed with fear. It's the reason he's constantly preoccupied with how House Lannister is perceived. It's not about actual power. Real power wouldn't need to care so much about appearances. Real power just is. Look at how he dismantles Jaime's sense of accomplishment.
You've served as a glorified bodyguard for two kings. One a madman, the other a drunk.
He doesn't do this because it's true, or because it will inspire Jaime to do better. He does it specifically to strip away any illusion that his son has built something that independently matters. Because if Jaime has accomplished something meaningful on his own terms, if his life has value separate from the Lannister brand, then Jaime doesn't need Tywin. He doesn't need to sacrifice his identity for the family name. The entire manipulation in this scene is built on Tywin convincing Jaime, and critically convincing himself, that individual identity doesn't actually matter, that the only thing that lasts, the only thing worth sacrificing for, is the collective reputation of House Lannister. It's actually a desperate philosophy when you really examine it, because it's not built on anything real or lasting. It's not built on love or loyalty or genuine connection or actual accomplishment. It's built entirely on the agreement of other people, strangers really, people you'll never meet, to respect the Lannister name. It's built entirely on fear, which is exactly what happens to Tywin in the end. He sacrifices everything real, actual relationships, genuine love, the chance to simply be himself, on the altar of the Lannister name. And in the end, it doesn't save him. The fortress doesn't protect him. But in this scene, Tywin doesn't see that coming. All he sees is the need to secure the name. All he sees is the need to make Jaime understand that individual glory means nothing. The speech reaches its climax with Tywin offering Jaime a choice that isn't really a choice at all. And physically, watch what happens. Tywin finally puts down his knife. He cleans his hands. He looks directly at Jaime for the first time, and his whole demeanor shifts. The distance closes.
I need you to become the man you were always meant to be. Not next year, not tomorrow.
The irony here is stunning, because Tywin is essentially telling Jaime, stop being yourself. Stop wanting to be seen as an individual. Become what I need you to be for the family. He's packaging it as destiny, as liberation, as purpose. But it's actually a form of erasure. He's asking Jaime to disappear into the role of being a Lannister. This is the moment where Tywin is at his most powerful. Not because he's being loud or aggressive, but because he's finally making an emotional connection. For just a second, we see Tywin as a father, as someone who loves his son in the only way he knows how, which is to say, by trying to reshape him into an image of perfection that can survive beyond death. The tragedy of Tywin isn't that he's evil. It's that he's trying to solve an unsolvable problem using the wrong tools. He's trying to defeat death using reputation. He's trying to achieve immortality through fear. And the deeper he goes down that path, the more he alienates the very people who are supposed to carry his legacy forward. What's fascinating is that the show has Jaime actually do change after this scene, but not because of Tywin's speech. Jaime changes because he's captured, because he loses his hand, because he's forced to strip away everything: his identity as the greatest swordsman, his identity as the Kingslayer, his entire self-image, and figure out who he actually is underneath all of it. The deepest tragedy isn't that Tywin dies. It's that everything he built to outlive him dies with him. The family name that he was so obsessed with protecting ends up being just another corpse in the Red Keep's halls. So if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. And I would also love to hear from you on this too. So, see you next time.